What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Investing Bros live show. It is Monday, November 4th, 3 p.m., and we have got a great show lined up for you today. In case you didn't know, we have an election this week here in the United States, electing our next president of the United States, and it will have major impacts on what crypto does next. Today, we're going to discuss that. What should you be expecting for the future movement of Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto markets? History has something to say about it, so you do not want to go anywhere. Make sure to smash the like button, hit subscribe, but first, we got to roll the intro. What is going on, Mr. T-Shroom? How you doing today?
Well, better than I deserve, Tim. Much better. Much better. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Had a very fun game of pickleball last night.
Oh, wow.
And then woke up this morning super sore because we played like 2.5 hours last night. And so no workout at the gym today. Recovery day. Went with a walk with Brody. You know, sometimes you got to have that relaxing day. Looking forward to get back in the gym tomorrow. I'm also looking forward to crypto prices doing something special. They've been dropping here as we get closer to the actual election details, T-Shroom, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what that looks like historically, what the next move should be. Let's get out ahead of some things here, T-Shroom. If you came in because you see our thumbnail and you think that our prediction is that if Kamala Harris wins, that we will go to $10,000, let's answer that right now. That's silly. That's not going to happen. No one should worry about $10,000, even if Kamala Harris wins. Where could it go to? Again, we'll get into that in the details here. But hey, if we got you in with the 10,000, welcome. Give us a like just for that. Also, stay tuned to the end of the show. Not a whole heck of a lot of news today, but that's good because we're going to be starting a new thing where from time to time our show, we will include segments. And today's segment, we're going to be laying out the price prediction for the bull market top of Cardano. It's going to be released as a video tomorrow morning, but anyone who's watching today live, you will get to watch me break down where I believe Cardano could be depending on when the top of the bull market actually ends up being. You don't want to miss it. But T-Shroom, before we get into the markets, we get into the news, we get into the charts, anything you want to say to the people?
Well, hodl. Continue to hodl. I don't have my hodl hat on, but it is definitely a day for folks to remember to hodl. If you take a look at Dogecoin. Right, take a look at actually many altcoins are up today, and just remember that there will be the other side, a release of the pressure from this election that has been mounting and mounting and mounting. We're getting close. We're getting very close. So stay bullish. Let's take a look at these bubbles.
Absolutely, the bubbles here giving us some mixed results, but I'm gonna go ahead and give the edge to the bears. There's a lot bigger and more red bubbles in the top 100 today than there are green. Some noticeable outliers here. We got Popcat down 6.5, Mantra 4.3, Optimism 6, Mu 4.5. The big losers, Rune 9.4 and Hex 8.7. That being said, when you look at the positive side of things, Dogecoin is up 6.9%. We might have to take a look at everyone's favorite meme coin. Actually, I don't think that's the truth. I don't know if Dogecoin's everyone's favorite, but it's the highest market cap by meme coin. So that would make it, I guess de facto, that would make it the most popular and most favorite.
It's my favorite meme coin.
Good. Okay. Well, there you go. It's T-Shroom's favorite meme coin, and it's up 6.9%. Some other big gainers, and it's not big, but gainers, 3.6% for Ray, 1.3 for Bonk, 1.7 for Quant, ENA up here 2.6. So not a lot of gainers here, T-Shroom. Before we get into the charts, though, we actually go and look at a couple of these coins. We'll take a look at Doge. We'll take a look at Chainlink today and Bitcoin. But first, let's get into the news, T-Shroom, and find out what is happening. What do people need to know about?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, there's not a ton going on the crypto side of news, but there is an election afoot, Tim. So we're going to cover that, and we're going to cover it right now. Where I'm going to start is actually Polymarkets, and Polymarkets right here continuing to trend around the high 50s. So right now at 57.7 is the probability that Donald Trump will win the election this cycle. 42% of gamblers in Vegas, however you want to call it, The betting odds are putting in 42.4 that Kamala will actually take the lead. Now, drilling in here, there's been some shifts in the swing states. And again, if you don't care about the elections, I kind of understand. I get it. You probably are tired of it. However, we're in the final hour here, and these are still very, very important swing state races. Again, if you're not in the U.S., you probably could care less about this level of granularity. But this is kind of tell us what we might expect in the next 24, 48 hours. Georgia, looks like it's pretty decidedly going to Trump again. All of this according to betting odds. Nevada, also pretty decidedly going to Trump. Arizona, handedly going to Trump there. But if you'll look here at the amount of electoral college votes, Georgia is the second biggest, and then Pennsylvania is the biggest. Donald Trump currently is holding strong, 57%. Again, betting odds. This is not the truth. This is not anything other than gamblers putting their money where their mouth is. But I happen to think that it actually has a lot of validity. Wisconsin and Michigan have been flipped, according to Polymarkets. Trump was carrying both of these handedly throughout last week, and now he is not. So Wisconsin and Michigan are in the hands of Harris, and that is a collective 25, a whopping 25 electoral votes that potentially could go to the Democratic candidate there. So very interesting development. Ultimately, a lot of smart analysts are still saying that Trump has the edge, but this is a toss-up, Tim. This is absolutely a toss-up. And I still have my opinions on it, but that's what we're seeing right now.
I want to comment on that because some of these polls here's the thing, and we've said this in the beginning. The reason why we love putting up Polymarket is because it's where people are putting their hard-earned money on something. That being said, you can have some outrageous, very wealthy, deep-pocketed conservative people, not just Americans but overseas as well, who want Donald Trump to win. And so they're gonna bet heavily for him. In fact, I think I heard of one story where a person bet alone $7 million on Donald Trump to win. You're going to have the exact same thing on the left, right? You're going to have some deep-pocketed people on the left who want Kamala Harris to win, so they're going to bet heavily on her to win. So there's no such thing as perfect about this. There's definitely nothing perfect about the polls. But Teacher, I was having a little thought last night about the polls, and a reason why I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think there's a chance that Trump wins with a lot of points, but I think the votes are going to be close in every one of these swing states. But the reason I'm feeling confident this morning about Donald Trump's chances to win is because if you go back to 2016, the polls leading into, of course, we didn't have Polymarket at the time, but the polls leading into Election Day had Clinton winning in a landslide, right? It wasn't even close. And then he started winning states that he was down 12, 15, 14 points in, according to these polls. And, of course, Donald Trump would go on not to win the popular vote, but to win the election. Well, then you move into 2020, and it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Same thing. While some of the swing states were a little close, a lot of swing states had Joe Biden winning handsomely going into the election. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump thinks that it was stolen from him. Whether you believe it or not, Biden ends up winning, but it was very close. T-Shroom, we have not seen polls recently ever say it's this close. Normally, the polls show that Democrats are far and away leading, and it ends up being closer than expected, or the Republicans end up winning. This time, they're calling every swing state literally like it's neck and neck, which makes me believe if these polls seem to lean towards giving Democrats the benefit of the doubt, that probably means they're not accounting for a lot of Republicans that end up showing up. Here's the thing, though. It's still Election Day tomorrow. We can talk about polls. We can talk about betting odds. We can talk about a lot of things. Are you guys listening here, and are you guys, the rest of the Americans in the country, are going to show up and vote? Because polls, at the end of the day, mean nothing if people do not show up and vote. Even if you disagree with me and T-Shroom are very outspoken Donald Trump supporters. We really hope he wins. If you're a Kamala supporter, that's fine. Still go vote. You're going to hear a lot of people say, if you don't agree with me, I don't want you to vote. No, I want Americans to vote. I want our voices to be heard. That being said, if you're still deciding who you think you should vote for, in my personal opinion, I think there's a plethora of reasons why Donald Trump is the better option. It needs us to go out and vote, though. Do not assume that your state is a lock. I don't care if you live in California or if you live in Arkansas. Go out and vote. Your vote still matters. You got one more day to do so. T-Shroom, anything from you, and then we'll move on from this topic. I mean, we're going to talk more about this topic because we're talking about the effects of who wins, but anything on the betting odds and on the polls you want to chime in on?
Yeah, so just to kind of drill in a little bit on the actual, this is the polls, right? We went over the betting odds. They're different, okay? The way that they arrive at this data set here is different than what I'm about to show you. This is the result of gambling and people putting their money, placing bets like you would on a horse race or a football game or a soccer game or some football Americanos. Anyway, this data is arrived at differently. This is a traditional method that has been, in the case of the 2016 election, was very, very inaccurate. So anyway, the fact that what to really look at here is this battleground section. This is what matters the most, in my opinion. And the fact is that they're all very, very close. They're all neck and neck. And the ones that really, really matter within that subset is Pennsylvania. Donald Trump has an ever so slight advantage of 0.3, right? But it's really not anything to conclude from when it comes to the polls, because there's usually a margin of error of at least 1%, but can be up to 3%. Historically, that's how inaccurate these are. They're an attempt for campaigns pay a lot of money for these polls for an attempt to get data on how they should go be more active or less active in certain counties and in certain states. So directionally, this is very informative because it tells the market and it tells the electorate in the United States that it's a close race. It's a very close race, and there's only a handful of states where they're a swing state, and in those states as well, it's very, very close. So just wanted to make that distinction for everybody. Even though the betting market is saying that Donald Trump is still winning handedly, that does not necessarily that is not reflected in the polls. But it's also the polls are not saying that Kamala Harris is going to win. So you can when it comes down to it, it looks like Trump's going to win, right? All of the data that I've been analyzing, it still is telling me that if you had to place a bet, if you had to put all your net worth on one side or the other, I would go with Trump at this point in time.
Well, let's keep going on here. I know we have some articles going deeper here. Let's get into the crypto details of this.
Let's do it.
Because you can think about who you want president or not. At the end of the day, what a lot of people, especially you listening who are not American citizens, you're just saying, what does this mean for my Bitcoin, for my Ethereum, for my altcoin holdings as a whole? T-Shroom, I know you have an article on that. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so taking a look here at the Benzinga website here, and it is saying that Bitcoin, on the evening of the election, here's how it performs in 2012, 2016, and 2020. And Tim, you were going to pull this up on your chart, but there is a bit of information here. Someone has done some math here. Said, looking at the historical performance of Bitcoin after elections, the analysts found a 2,320% year-on-year return for Bitcoin following Obama's 2012 victory. A 950% increase after Trump's 2016 win, and a 370% rise after Biden's triumph. So a lot of points for this. This is a lot of good math in here, and a lot of good word diversity to make a good coherent sentence. However, Tim, you had pulled up the Bitcoin historical chart to try to gain a similar insight there. But if I could, while you're doing that, my takeaway from this is that Bitcoin doesn't really care who's president. It doesn't care who wins. It doesn't care who stays in power or loses power. Bitcoin is going to go up, and sometimes it's going to go up by thousands of percent. Now that number has gone down. It still has remained hundreds of percentage increase after an election. 370 was the last one after Biden was elected. So this number is getting smaller. But Tim, let's take a look at the charts and see if history is any guide, what we might expect this time around.
Maybe we need to take a look at it. The other thing that could be misleading there, that is talking about percentage increase of price. Price does not tell the full story. It's really about market cap. Let's take a look at that here in a second. But let's just talk about price for a second. Let's talk about what's happened over the last 3 elections. Going back to, and I don't know the exact date of every election, but we always know the elections happen early in November. What did the price of Bitcoin look like early in November? Well, if you come back over here, you're going to see that Bitcoin's price would actually continue to rise here. Let's see, early November is going to put us way back here. The price of Bitcoin would go from around 15,126. It would rally up to those highs, have a little bit of volatility, but as a whole, over the next couple of months, it would explode from 15,000 all the way up to 42 before any major correction. Of course, what happened in 2020? This was the election of Joe Biden. And even though a lot of us listening here probably weren't heavily invested in crypto, there was still that assumption that if we had Donald Trump again, the economy would be okay. If Joe Biden came in, the economy would struggle. Everything would go down. Of course, there was that very famous Donald Trump saying that if Joe Biden was elected, the stock market would crash. And while there's been a lot of economic problems, I want to make sure that I'm handling this very fairly and realistically. While there were a lot of economic problems under Joe Biden, we did see Bitcoin go to new all-time highs. We saw most cryptos go to new all-time highs. We saw the stock market, even to more recently, go to all-time highs. Now, inflation played a pretty ugly role as well. But the point is, I want to just be fair, and we're talking about the crypto markets. Under Joe Biden, the economy and the crypto markets, from a standpoint of the stock market, did very, very well. Let's go to 2016, of course, when Donald Trump was elected president back in the day. We got to go scroll way, way, way back here. November of 2016, early November, right in here. Boom. Bitcoin price struggling here, kind of wrestling if you zoom in between roughly $671 and $747. It would go on after the election to explode up to over 1,000, drop back down, explode over 1,000 again, drop back down, and then would have an extremely epic bull run there in 2017. But the point is, if you look at the actual time it happened in here, little bit of choppiness leading into the election, and then boom, the price went to the upside. Scrolling all the way back to the second presidential election for for Barack Obama. Again, we go in here early November of 2012. Let's zoom in there. Let's take a look here. Where did Bitcoin's price go? Did it have any type of downward movement? Well, yes, it had some choppiness and downward movement into the election, and then boom, the election happens, early November comes, and Bitcoin would explode from $10 over the next couple of months, rallying all the way up to $264 very, very quickly. What is my overall point here? Well, if you take a look at Bitcoin, it didn't matter if it was a Democrat, didn't matter if it was a Republican, didn't matter if people said that the economy would be good, didn't matter if the people said the economy would be bad. Ultimately, Bitcoin just persevered no matter what. The same can be said when you look at the crypto space as a whole. This is the total chart right here. It's not just Bitcoin that exploded. Total includes Bitcoin and Ethereum, but it also holds a lot of the altcoins. If you go back to November, we had an altcoin run early in November that would lead into the explosive parts of the bull market. So crypto as a whole benefited there in 2020. It also did the same exact thing here in 2016. You guys can see right in here, after some choppiness, it would go on to explode. What this means, historically speaking, is that no matter who wins the presidency, Bitcoin, while it's waiting for people to get in, it's time for it to explode and go to the upside. All roads lead to bullishness. Either A, Donald Trump and the perceived better president for the economy comes in, the one that's very safe for Bitcoin and Bitcoin goes up, or B, Kamala Harris comes in and she claims to be for Bitcoin. She claims to be for crypto. We don't know what regulation's going to look like, but we get that certainty that no matter whether you like it or not, we know who our next president is going to be. It releases those whales who have been holding and waiting on the sideline, and they end up sending the price to the upside. Either way, historically speaking, you should be feeling very bullish right now about Bitcoin and altcoins. The only reason altcoins are in question is because, again, with Trump, we have some clarity on regulation. With Harris, we still have some looming question marks. That's okay. People sometimes act as if Harris has come out and said that the minute she gets elected, she's going to do something very negative for altcoins. She's going to increase ridiculously bad regulation. She hasn't said that. The truth is she hasn't said a whole lot about crypto other than trying to claim she's pro-crypto. With that said, let's wait to see what happens. Anyone can guess who the president's going to be. But at this point, historically speaking, when we talk about what the future looks like, T-Shroom, it looks very bright either way you cut it up.
It does. It does. And right now it's all eyes are on this election. Everyone wants their candidate to win. right? Or either that, or they just want it to all go away. Well, it will be going away, but not yet. All right, we've got some more stories here. Whenever there's advocacy for Bitcoin or crypto on Fox News, Fox Business, that is, or CNBC or Bloomberg, we like to show it. So we're going to listen to a clip, not too consequential to markets necessarily, but it's always good to see Anthony Pompliano on screen. So let's take a look, Tim. Let's take a listen.
If you look at gold and the S&P 500 over the last 5 years, the compound annual growth rate is about the same. Gold's up 13%, and the S&P is up 14%. Bitcoin has destroyed that. And so I like to say that Bitcoin is gold with wings. Bitcoin and gold both go up for the same reason. They're debasing the dollar, but Bitcoin is much more sensitive. It's an earlier asset that the world is trying to price in. What's very unique about Bitcoin is that it's a bottoms-up story. Most technology goes top-down. Militaries and governments, they adopt it first, then corporations, and then finally individuals. They get a smartphone or they get a computer on their desk. They're the last ones. Bitcoin was the opposite. The individuals got it first. Now we're seeing corporations and financial institutions like BlackRock and Fidelity start to adopt this. Eventually, it's going to be central banks, and it is going to be governments. Central banks today own 12% of the global gold supply. I believe that they will eventually start to buy Bitcoin. That'd be very bullish for the price of Bitcoin.
So very, very bullish. Obviously, Anthony Pompliano, obviously something we agree with there. But it's sometimes we can find ourselves in an echo chamber where we agree with that. We hear that all the time. We may even be talking about that with people in a Discord channel or talking about that with people that we work with. But it's very seldom that type of a message is heard on Fox Business, where most of the time they're talking about the S&P 500 and job cuts or whatever at some corporation. So Tim, just how bullish is this? We also have an extension of this clip as well.
Yeah, this kind of backs up even some. This maybe gives a better answer as to why what I just said is going to be true. No matter who wins president, we're going to see it go up. And here's the reason why. Because at the end of the day, no matter whether we have a Republican president or a Democrat president, there are powers behind the scenes that they will always win. And one of those powers is someone like BlackRock. BlackRock, notice that they've been very quiet about who they want to win presidency. In fact, we haven't heard Larry Fink or someone from BlackRock say anything about the presidency. You want to know why? Because they honestly probably don't care. They're going to get to do whatever they want to do no matter who is president. And so when you look at this situation, this is another thing I want people very much prepared for. There's this assumption that if Kamala Harris wins, that we should crash in price, right? More than likely, a lot of retail investors will even probably sell. Guess who wants to buy up that supply? It's the long-term whales and the people and the institutions just like BlackRock. Guys, liquidity for Bitcoin is not very high. We've said this before and we'll say it again. Yes, there's about 20 million Bitcoin in circulation, and there will only ever be 21 million, right? But of the 20 million Bitcoin that are circulating, that are supposed to be going back and forth or could go back and forth, there's an estimate that less than 5 million of those tokens are actually movable. What does that mean? It means 15 million Bitcoin are either in wallets of people who have declared and said they are not selling for a very long time. I'm talking about the Michael Saylors. I'm talking about the Satoshi Nakamotos. Or they're in wallets that have been lost. Yeah, you heard me right. That is one thing that happens is people can lose Bitcoin and that Bitcoin is gone forever. There's only 5 million, less than 5 million on the table to actually get exchanged. And when you think about how many people are going to want to get a hold of Bitcoin, that's really not that much. So what does that mean? It means that for these larger institutions to acquire more and more and more, they're going to need some reason to get these long-term holders to sell their Bitcoin. What's one of those reasons they could do it? They could come up with some sort of large-scale bearish sounding situation. Again, what are the people grabbing onto right now? Kamala Harris winning president would be bad. I'm not saying she's going to win, and I'm not saying BlackRock's rigging the whole system so that she wins. I'm just saying if Donald Trump wins, the price will increase because demand will increase. If Kamala Harris wins, retail that sell their coins expecting some major dump will sell them right into the hands of BlackRock, and price will stay still and then start to rally as demand comes back in. That is what we're watching right now. That's what Pompliano's even, I don't know if he's meaning to refer to it or not, but he is, T-Shroom. He's literally saying here the institutions are showing massive demand, and a big excuse to buy more is right on the table. If retail decides to mass panic sell, I believe people like Michael Saylor, people like Larry Fink and BlackRock, and many others who have been sitting on the sidelines are going to be sitting there like kids on Christmas morning with all of this Bitcoin easily buyable. They're going to gobble it all up.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. The clip doesn't stop there. The host of the show on Fox Business actually has a pretty good follow-up question.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. Let's take a listen.
Bitcoin a safe haven?
Bitcoin is
But wait, one second. You don't talk about cryptos in general. You just focus on Bitcoin, right?
I think that Bitcoin is not only the asset that has the most regulatory clarity, it is the asset that's been around the longest, it's the largest one, and it's the one that most people have the most confidence in that it's going to be here in 20 years.
Show me with numbers that Bitcoin is the savings account of the new generation.
If you think of the traditional financial system, you have a checking account, you got a savings account. That checking account is being replaced by stable coins. It's just dollars in a digital rail. Bitcoin is becoming that savings account. And the beauty of a savings account is you put your money there and you don't move it. So if you go and you look on chain, you can see that more than 1 out of every 2 Bitcoin has not moved in the last 2 years. And 2 out of every 3 Bitcoin has not moved in the last 12 months, even though Bitcoin's price has tripled during that time period.
Clearly.
So very cool. Very fast talker. A lot of information there to take in. But Tim, what's your take on that answer?
Even right there at the end of what he said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Bitcoin is not moving. A large bit of it has not moved in a very long time. They need something to get to move. And again, I'm not saying that's a shoe and that means Kamala's going to win. I'm saying they need some event to get people who are long-term holders who are not selling to feel like they need to go ahead and sell. I think, T-Shroom, if it's not Kamala Harris, right, and I think that there's a good chance that Donald Trump wins, as we said earlier. But let's say it's Kamala Harris wins. I think this is the excuse that retail investors will sell and BlackRock and others will buy it up. If Donald Trump wins, they still need some great excuse to get retail investors to sell their Bitcoin. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm going to talk about it later on in the show when we do our Cardano price prediction. A great excuse would be when all of retail experienced and thinks that the bull market is over. When the expectation is, all right, it's time to sell. We're not going to fall. We're not going to fall for that thing like last time. We're going to sell this time at the top. And that would be the 4-year cycle. The majority of retail investors, if there was a poll, I know we're polling for presidents right now, T-Shroom. If we could poll crypto holders when the top of the bull market is going to be, I guarantee you more than 50% are going to say, oh, the 4-year cycle, once again, we're talking about October, November of 2025. Well, guess what? That's another great excuse, great reason for retail to sell their Bitcoin, to sell their crypto in mass. And guess who's right there to buy it up? It's going to be BlackRock. It's going to be Michael Saylor. It's going to be these other whales who understand if they can buy your Bitcoin a year from now at $200,000 and they know in a couple of years it's going to be worth millions, that's a steal of a deal. They think long-term. Retail, you got to think the same way. That's why I kind of really get away from what Pomp's even saying here. It is a good reason why Bitcoin's a good hold. And
if you're somebody who's sitting there, you're like, wait, the top of the market might be different this cycle. You know, you may be thinking, well, how can I take advantage of price moving to the upside of this crypto stuff, and then but also not get taken by the big banks? Well, to answer those types of questions, you know, we have a community called the Brolux memberships. You guys can go ahead and join that down below to ask those types of questions. You can also just join our free Discord where we answer those types of things day in and day out. But if you're ready to make that commitment and learn to trade, learn to invest for yourself, and pursue financial freedom, Brolux memberships is the place to be. Now, Tim, we have one more story here. It's not super big again, kind of a light news day again. Today's not the day to come out with a press release and a news release that's important, because you're going to be competing with the Democrat Party and the Republican Party that are just absolutely barraging the American market, at least, with paid advertising. Tim, Citigroup Fidelity International unveil proposal for an on-chain fund with real-time FX swaps. So there is still development going on. There is still actual market-moving news that is coming out. So this is obviously just bullish. And but Tim, the problem with these types of headlines is that we've been getting so many bullish headlines, and Bitcoin has not been breaking out to the all-time high. Of course, the ongoing theory that I hold is because we are not on the right side of the elections. We've been in this limbo state where big money just does not want to allocate until these elections are over, not because one is going to be better than the other from an outcome standpoint, but just for more complex reasons that we've talked about before. But Tim, it's a bullish headline. I think we get into the Cardano price prediction here next, because the news is done.
Well, before we get there, I think what you're saying there is true. We've been saying it more than likely. I think that, we were clear. I was at least on the side of, I thought we got above 70K before the election, but I said I don't think new all-time highs happen before the election. Sure enough, that's exactly what's played out. But guess what? Another thing that's happening here. So we're waiting on the election. That's the main catalyst right now in crypto to make the next move. Guess what else we're waiting on? That happens just 2 days. It happens on Thursday, 2 days after the election. It's going to be this right here on my screen. Our Fed Watch tool monitoring what will the Fed end up doing with interest rates. At the moment, 98% of CME futures is predicting another 25 basis points. We're going to continue to get cheaper money. We're going to increase all of that liquidity in the markets as a whole. So the 1-2 punch, we finally, after years of debating it, we're going to find out who the next president is, and we're going to see our monetary policy moving forward. And the expectation is both of these things are going to be triggering a bullish uptick in price action. Stay tuned on that. Very quickly, before the Cardano stuff, I want to make sure we're still monitoring things here. Everybody, we're still targeting. We're getting a small bounce today off of this red line. This is one of the resistance levels we've been tracking on Bitcoin, but we still have targets beneath us that are looking potentially likely down here at 65 to 66. Here's my thought, T-Shroom. I think this either happens before or right after the election. I think if it happens before the election, then we actually pump into the election, and then we keep going depending on what happens there. If we don't pump, if we end up hovering right at our current level, do not be surprised, no matter who wins, if you see a flash crash down into these levels where there are high levels of liquidity, meaning a lot of people wanting to take profit on their shorts, a lot of people with long positions that they want to bring down and buy in at those levels. There's a lot of reasons why the markets want to come back down here towards 66,000 for Bitcoin. Keep an eye on that. When you look at the oscillators here, you are seeing still continued weakness as that MACD continues to move down. The money flow and the Luxago oscillator continue to move down. They ignored a green reversal as a whole. So Bitcoin, again, targets still looking, despite the fact that we have a small bounce today around 67.3, we still have 66 on the table. It is something to keep an eye on. I told you also very quickly I'd take a look at Doge, which is moving nicely today. Was there any major support levels that ended up getting hit on these lower time frames? Because it is definitely getting a nice bounce. Sure enough, right there, the bullish breaker block here on the 4-hour chart. We came down, bounced very nicely. I'm going to assume got some form of a buy signal here on the 4-hour chart. We did. There is slightly positive money flow. There is a bullish reversal right there. And guess where we're rejecting at the moment? Right there on the 4-hour smart trail. Luxago continues to be just a clutch tool if you're looking to trade, whether you want to scalp or you're a swing trader, whether you want to trade 7 trades a day or only 1 every couple of months. Luxago is the perfect tool for you. Go check it out down in the link below. With that said, it is time to transition into a new segment of the show here. We're going to go ahead. Thank you for that, T-Shroom. We're going to go ahead and get into our Cardano price prediction. A lot of you guys have been asking for this for a while, and today, live on the show, I'm going to break down for you where I think the Cardano price will be at the top of the bull market. If you're ready for that, go ahead and smash the like button and hit subscribe. Let's start off with the first chart I have up here, T-Shroom. You got to understand where crypto is going to be. And a lot of people are going to disagree with these numbers. You've heard them if you've watched our other price prediction videos. But there's 3 different time frames of when I think the top could be. We'll discuss that here later on, but you need to understand there's 3 different timetables and there's expectations of where the market cap of crypto is going to be. We have 6 trillion. Probably if we top out early in April of 2025, I think crypto as a whole will get to 6 trillion. If we make it a 4-year cycle, we top out, say, October of 2025, we're talking about $11 trillion for all of crypto. And then there is an argument out there about an extended bull market. I actually even mentioned it earlier on in this live show. Potentially, do you see a big purchase happen at the end of the 4-year cycle? We extend into 2026 where we see potentially a $20 trillion market cap for crypto as a whole. You can let me know if you disagree with those numbers. I think there's a lot of reasons as to why those details match along with those timelines, the 6 trillion, 11 trillion, and the $20 trillion market cap. That, though, is very important if you want to understand the price prediction of any coin. In this case, we're talking about Cardano. But to know the price of any asset, you have to understand where its market cap is going to be. Well, starting off with the total crypto market cap, we then can use historical data to track what we think the dominance of any coin is going to be. If you watched our show a couple of weeks ago, we put Cardano in a camp that we think it could hover around the number 10 spot and could be as low as number 15. So ultimately, right there, 10 to 15 is where we expect it to be ranked at the end of the bull market. Well, historically, if you actually go back and you look at the coin that was ranked number 10, number 11 at the end of the bull market, it was Shiba Inu. This is the SHIB.D chart. And if you go back to November of 2021, you'll see this little range of dominance after peaking above 2%. The November of 2021 time period right in here is going to be putting us somewhere between 1.3 to 1.16% dominance in November. What do I do with this information? That lets me believe that Cardano is going to be at a similar standpoint. It's going to be number 10, 11, 12, 13 area, and is going to have roughly a 1.3% dominance of these total market caps back here. All right, so now that I have those details, if I think I have an expectation of where the market cap's going to be, all I have to do is find the supply, and we start to lay out our price predictions. Let's start off with prediction number 1 if we had an early bull market top in April of 2025. As I mentioned, Cardano would have a 1.3% dominance of roughly $6 trillion. That would give us a market cap for Cardano of $78 billion per coin, okay? $78 billion per coin. At the time, the estimation of where Cardano's supply is going to be is roughly $35.5 billion. So I take these two numbers. I have a $78 billion market cap. I divide it by 35 billion 500 million, and I get the number of my price for early top. It is going to be right here. Go back to my screen, $2.19 in an early top. This again, if we have a $6 trillion market cap, and if Cardano does hover around number 10, this would be the expected price for Cardano. It's not at a new all-time high, but it is back up above that oh-so-hungry $1 mark that Cardano holders have been waiting for, and it puts us, again, right there at a very modest $2.19. But what happens to Cardano if we were to go into that continual 4-year cycle? Again, $11 trillion in total crypto. We had a 1.3% dominance for Cardano. That gives us a market cap of $143 billion. Well, at that time, the supply of Cardano would be roughly $35.9 billion. I take those numbers, 143 billion divided by 35.9 billion, and this gives us the price prediction of $3.98. This would be a brand new all-time high, falling just short of $4. Now, that number is going to get both sides of the issue kind of upset, right? We got a lot of Cardano people in our community that really want to see the price go higher. They're expecting maybe $7 to $10 by the end of 2025. You also have people who do not like Cardano whatsoever. I completely understand that, completely get it. They're going to say there's no way Cardano gets to an all-time high. All I'm trying to do here is give you fair evaluation of, based off of historical data and where crypto should be as a whole, the fair number for Cardano, either too high or too low. It's going to be right there on $3.98 by the end of October of 2025. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you think that's too high or too low. But let's transition into the third and final price prediction of Cardano's potential in this bull market. We go to that extended cycle of maybe we rally all the way to the end of 2026. We're talking about a $20 trillion market cap for crypto at a 1.3% dominance. That would give Cardano a market cap of $260 billion. The supply would be about $37 billion, and that math divides to a $7.02 Cardano if we get all the way into 2026. Now, that's the number a lot of you, again, are thinking about maybe the end of 2025. I think there's a chance Cardano hits $7 if we make that extended cycle. Again, that 1.3% dominance, the market cap of crypto going that high, we need those things to happen. But all signs at the moment point towards, if this happens, Cardano would be at $7. Before we move on, though, before we end our Cardano price prediction, I want to make sure I make this very clear. If our market cap numbers are wrong, let's say those market cap levels go a lot lower, this will also affect the price of Cardano. If the prices are a lot higher, of course, Cardano is going to be a lot higher. The other thing we're kind of factoring in right now, we're not really certain how it's going to play out, is the fact that this is a institutional bull market. I talked about this earlier in the show, but BlackRock, Fidelity, and other institutions are going to go heavily into crypto, not just Bitcoin, but altcoins as well. And if you had asked me this question literally a month ago, I would have told you Cardano more than likely is not a coin that the institutions want to play with a lot. But with recent news on the Cardano front, their bridge between them and Bitcoin, being able to use Bitcoin liquidity, I think this really does kick Cardano up into another notch. I'm not talking about going into the top 5, but I'm saying I think even in an extended bull market into 2026, that there will be enough adoption, enough use case for Cardano. It maintains somewhere around the number 10 spot. So for me, I'm still going to put the least likely outcome. I've said this for every price prediction we've done. I think the least likely outcome for a bull market top is going to be the 4-year cycle. I really do believe that's when retail will sell, but institutions will pick up every single asset that they want. They'll pick it up and they'll keep pumping it. We're either going to see the top happen in April or sometime in 2026. And with Cardano's recent move into being slightly more institutionally friendly in their integration into liquidity of Bitcoin, it's going to be a major, major boost to the Cardano ecosystem. I think the most likely outcome is we do go closer towards that $7 mark and we extend the bull market into 2026. Let me know down below what you agree with, what you disagree with, what your final price prediction for Cardano is, and what other coins you want to see. But those are mine. Tish Room, I'm going to throw it to you. Questions, thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts about this Cardano price prediction?
No, I agree. I agree with your kind of the variability that could potentially occur with it being more of a institutional bull market or it being more of a retail bull market. Breaking that down a little bit more, institutions, those are the big banks. Those are the pension funds, right? Mm-hmm. Those are 401k holders, right? We know that what they can access today very easily is the ETFs. The Bitcoin ETFs specifically have broken records historically from stock exchanges in the United States in terms of adoption. It's gotten, the Bitcoin ETF has been bought extremely aggressively, and the only other coin that has an ETF is Ethereum. Now there's talks of XRP and Solana that they could potentially get an ETF. I do think they are next in line. If it becomes an ETF dominated bull market, and so far it kind of has been, then we may not see as much of an allocation going into names like Cardano. Now that could also affect any other altcoin that doesn't have an ETF. So ETFs, though, would most likely start coming out very quickly and be approved very quickly, especially in a Trump administration. We can kind of assume that would be true. Now, if it's more of a retail, right, and a bunch of people who are willing to look past what happened with FTX, who are willing to put money that they may not afford to lose because of a looming recession, put that into a risky asset class like crypto. If those two things are willing to happen, then we could see retail make a big resurgence. I just don't see that happening for those reasons. I think a lot of people are still burned by FTX. They don't understand the difference between crypto now, especially if you're buying an ETF, and the safety that comes with that, versus what crypto was where FTX was alive and well and scamming everybody unknowingly. Yeah. So, and then also, with a lot of the different labor dynamics, the data that we take a look at here on the live show day to day, it kind of paints a picture where people just don't have that much money right now. And that can change. That can definitely change. But as it stands right now, it looks like it's going to be an institutional bull market. Institutions are the ones that have a lot more discretionary income that they want to, discretionary funds that they want to go out and invest and get a high rate of return. Crypto, AI, those are the two big verticals right now to invest in to deliver really good returns to your investors. And so I just think that, that the institutions are going to be so much more dominant than retail, but retail will absolutely come in later in the cycle once people that they've heard of, that they know, like, and trust, have made hundreds of thousands or if not millions of dollars from just the top 100 coins.
I think another thing, T-Sherm, to think about in this bull market is past bull markets have really been driven on hype, a lot of hype.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying hype won't play any factor whatsoever. For example, meme coins are purely driven on hype, right? There's no use case for meme coins. There's no utility. So meme coins only pump based off of community and hype. That being said, previous bull markets have shown cryptos, altcoins will pump based off of hype and community building. It's almost like every coin was a meme coin. But look at the ones that have made runs so far. They're actually coming up with use cases and people are using them extremely heavily. I'm thinking about Solana, for example, which I just saw another headline that today they hit another new all-time high for active users, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just hype with Solana. The hype followed because, again, Solana had a terrible story of being tied to FTX and then crashing and everyone thought it was done. Solana found its success in a proven result and use case. And then as the price increased dramatically because of how good the product was and the amount of people using it, then you saw the hype pick up and the value went up. And that's, I think, a big deal with where Cardano is. And I think people need to brace for impact here, right? If you were a Cardano hater, you need to make sure you're aware of what the future looks like. I'll tell you this right now. You shouldn't hate or love any coin. You should look at them and value them for what they're working on and what they're actually accomplishing. And I'll give credit to Cardano haters of the past to say, you know what? For the longest time, Cardano did live off of hype. And Cardano was not producing at the same levels of the Solanas and the Ethereums. They've been working very hard at building their infrastructure, and that infrastructure is now here to play. And again, a month ago, I might have even put my numbers lower. I might have said, you know what, guys? Cardano would be lucky to have a 1% dominance. But the reason I'm giving it credit to get up there towards the 1.3, the reason I'm saying it's going to stick around all the way to the end is because this news that they just got of their deal with Bitcoin, it's not sparking anything right now, but it's going to increase use case. It's going to increase adoption. And so right now, it does not have the hype. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say Cardano is the hottest altcoin right now. What I'm saying is they just landed a major collaboration that's going to increase use case. And as the use case increases, the hype will come later. Do not sleep on Cardano. Doesn't mean you need to invest in it right now. Don't sell all of your Solana to go into Cardano. Don't get out of your Chainlink and AVAX and Ondo and real world asset plays that I think are safe is the wrong word, but very good investments. But don't sleep on Cardano just yet because they did score a major win in that collaboration with Bitcoin OS and now the liquidity they have access to.
Well, I think you mentioned the tokenization, right? Tokenization it tells us the market a couple of different things. One is what Wall Street's interested in. What is the institutions interested in? Are they interested in NFTs and facilitating, that type of an ecosystem where you can do cool stuff that retail is interested in, that relates to video games, that relates to social media? No. Institutions don't care about that kind of stuff unless they can turn it around and sell it, right? But they're not interested in playing games with NFTs. They're not interested in developing some ultra free speech social media or something that you can make with a decentralized blockchain like Cardano. But what they are interested in is tokenization. And right, that's the narrative that I think, Tim, you were trying to find the right word. It's not that it's safer than Cardano. That's not the part of the equation that I'm really considering. It's that it's what Wall Street, meaning BlackRock and Fidelity and Franklin Templeton and all of these big institutional names that have taken a big step into the crypto market, that's what they're deploying capital in. That's what they're interested in. That's what they're issuing reports on month over month. That's what they're giving speeches on CNBC and at conventions around the world. Like, that's the stuff to be excited about if you're an investor in this crypto market this time around. Now, if you have your projects that you're interested in, you have an NFT collection that's not going anywhere, right? It's just we haven't seen the retail flood in to really form a swelling in those sub ecosystems. Could that happen again? I think it probably will. especially when you think about the metaverse and that the future is much more online. I think getting in early to those type of ecosystems makes sense. You got to pick the right ones, right? You can't, but you just can't fall in love with those for this cycle, in my opinion. I think it's you just got to follow the money that institutions are looking into, and RWA tokenization and meme coins seem to be the big not that institutions are overly interested in meme coins, but that's where retail that is here and crypto whales are kind of deploying capital and gambling and speculating. So a lot of thoughts.
Someone here asked a question: What if recession hits, right? And it hits bad. Here's something that people should consider about how to handle recession discussion and recession fear. The first thing I'll say is rarely do recessions come after months of fearing that it's going to come. A lot of times recessions kind of come during a time where everyone feels really strong and the economy is strong and people feel good about everything. Technically, on data points, the economy is strong, with S&P 500 being close to all-time high. But I don't think Americans feel good right now. I don't think that they feel like the economy is very strong. I could be wrong. If you guys feel like we're doing amazing, let me know. Most people, I think, are kind of in a mood where they're going to complain. So that's what also kind of boils down to this presidential election. And I'll tell you, my general outcome, no matter who wins president, is that I don't think we will see a recession. I said there's a chance with Kamala Harris that maybe something bad happens, but I'm kind of even working myself out of that thought, and I'll explain why. Start off with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump wins, we'll get DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. He'll start slashing costs. Guess what else he'll do, though? He's okay with continuing to cut rates on interest rates. He'll print enough money he needs to get the machine running. When I'm not the machine, the government machine, the machine of cutting costs and getting the American people back on their feet. Donald Trump will enact policies to hopefully save the economy, but definitely kick the recession talks down the road. All right. So I think a lot of people are on board with that. I think a lot of people feel strongly about how the economy will perform under Donald Trump. Let's talk about Kamala Harris, though, for a second. And again, a lot of conservatives, people probably don't want to hear this, but I think you should think about this critically. Me, myself, being an anti-Kamala Harris supporter, I still critically think this is how she's going to operate. Will she make mistakes? Probably. But she'll inherit an interest rate that's pretty high at the moment. She'll inherit an economy where the inflation numbers, believing them or not, are relatively low. The unemployment is showing signs of being in trouble, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty low. She will have at her disposal the ability to slash interest rates with the Fed. Again, the same thing Donald Trump's going to do. She also will absolutely turn the money printers on and start printing some money. Now, is that good for the economy long term? Heck no. But it pushes that recession down the road. And guess what absolutely will benefit from higher inflation? Bitcoin. So the way I'm looking at it right now, it goes back to what I said earlier. No matter who wins president, we're looking at a time in the economy right now that you can worry about the future. You can worry about what the economy will look like in 2026 and 2027 and 2028. But I genuinely think the tools are there, no matter who wins presidency, to avoid a major recession in 2025. The other thing to think about is Donald Trump, this would be his last presidential election, but he's going to do his best to leave it, the economy in a good place for the next president. I think he would hope that's going to be J.D. Vance in 2028. For Kamala Harris, this would be the first term she would be president, which means she would want to run for re-election in 2028. I'm not going to say never, but T-Shroom, it's
some good points.
Very uncommon for a president in their first term to allow bad things to happen to the economy. Their second term, well, I can't get reelected. All right, let's go ahead and deal with the problem. I'll make a problem that the next guy's got to deal with. That would make sense, right? But Kamala Harris, I think she would fight tooth and nail to avoid a recession in her first 4 years, because then that would be a death trap to her getting a second election. I mean, I think one of the factors, you can say there's a lot of different things, but I think one of the factors, it was out of his hands. But why didn't Trump win in 2020? I do think there are people out there that blamed him for COVID. Dumb as that might sound, that is where we live in the world where people don't know the details. They just know, is my life good or is my life bad? What has happened to me recently? I'm going to vote according to that process. I see the and we'll go crazy here. I see the people that will back Harris and the deep state. If they want to keep her in power, they would not allow a recession to happen under her watch in the first 4 years. That's a second presidency that they'd let that happen. So, that's just my way of thinking about this T-Shroom. I'm really actually not worried about a recession coming soon. That's why I'm leaning towards this extended bull market concept past 2025.
Yeah, man. You're thinking in the future, and there's crazy things have been happening in this decade, right? Things that nobody expected were going to occur. I don't think it's crazy to say that Kamala Harris actually could do a pretty good job economically if she were to be president. I mean, but you're making that case. I don't think it's crazy. You just probably would have to let go of what a lot of people don't want to let go of, which is labeling her a communist or labeling her some kind of redistributionist. And I think that I don't think she should. All right, so there's a lot of speculation, Tim, but I want to transition into one thing that is not speculation. And for those of you who watched the stream all the way to the end, maybe you didn't care about Cardano, but you persevered. There's a lot of people still watching. So I want to give you guys a little bit of alpha here at the end of the stream, because while the betting odds have corrected recently with Donald Trump getting up as high as what was it, 60, 67, that is absolutely insane. But now there's been a correction back to the downside, has found support here around 54. But one thing that has not corrected down, and we have seen some downward movement in it today, is the 10-year bond rate. So this is a much bigger, as a very big understatement, it's a much bigger market. It's much harder to lie. It's much harder to hide the ball in the bond rates. What this is illustrating here, we talked about it this morning, is that people do not want to buy 10-year bonds. They don't want to lock their liquidity into this yield asset that is a fixed yield asset, right? They want to say, hey, I don't care that you can guarantee me this rate of return. I care about having my money ready to deploy because I think Donald Trump is going to win. That is what this chart is telling me, is that back in September, from September to where we are now, 19% to live price is the ascension of the 10-year yield, right? And recently there has not been a correction, right? We've gotten maybe 2% back of that in the last weeks. Meanwhile, in poly market, it's kind of a lot more all over the place. There's been this big swing lower, and then today a movement higher. The bond market essentially has not flinched on this. They've said, no, Trump's going to win. We don't want to put our money in U.S. bonds. We don't want fixed income. We want to have it ready to deploy into Amazon, into MicroStrategies, into Microsoft, into whatever else. A new housing development, right, in some city. What they are willing to do, and you actually see this is the 3 month. This is actually hitting new lows. Why is that? Why is that further indicative of a Trump victory? Is because they're willing to say, when we buy bonds, we're only going to hold them for 3 months. Meaning, this is, in my mind, the bond market is forecasting a Trump victory, while poly market can't make up their mind. Although it does appear that it is giving it to Trump quite generously. While the polls definitely can't make up their mind, the bond market most certainly can, and the betting market is speaking pretty loudly as well, although that has had some correction. So a little bit of alpha for you there at the end, kind of looking into the tea leaves of the bond market, and a lot of people are not doing that, but we're doing it here at the Bros. Could there be a way that that's wrong? To be honest with you, I don't know. I guess that the bond market could kind of be lying in some way, but people just don't want to be in fixed income right now. They're either deployed into the stock market, they're in gold, right, or they're just in cash. They're sitting there waiting because they think Trump's going to win.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Fair point. Well, T-Shroom, it is 3:59. We got to close out today's stream. We did not get to a factoid of the day, which means we'll do 2 factoids tomorrow. We got to make up for it, but it is time to wrap out the show today. And it's time for the last Tim's take of the show today. Listen here, guys. It's going to be very simple. I said it earlier in the show. Go vote. Go vote no matter who you're going to vote for. I'm not here to tell you who you need to vote for. And if you disagree with me, don't go vote. You have an opportunity to make your voice heard, and this is your chance right now. There are times that everyone has had arguments to vote or not vote, but at the end of the day, this is probably the most important election I've ever seen. I know everyone says that every single 4 years, but this one is one of the more divisive, the issues are really, really big, and which president you vote for, you're going to see some very different things. And I'm not just talking about crypto, because I think crypto is actually one of the least affected situations of this election. When it comes to everything else, though, it matters. Your voice matters. Your opinion matters. Your vote matters. Do not treat it like a piece of garbage to crumple up and throw away, because the minute you start treating it like that is when our officials will do the same. And I don't want to live in a country where we no longer have the right to make our voice heard. Go out there, vote tomorrow. God bless the USA. God bless you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
One more thing, really quick, before we head out. We have an X Spaces today. So if you can't get enough analysis, which I know I can't, Tim, because things are constantly changing in the betting markets and other things, we're going to be digesting all of this tonight with some awesome folks. We have a former employee of Tesla. We have some of the guys from Sin City. Kelly Kellum is going to be joining us tonight at 8 p.m. in our normally scheduled 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time X Spaces. So be there or be square. It's going to be a ton of fun. Now, Tim, we could say goodbye.
Yeah. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Adios.